Hi Gregor again, and nice to see you here. You're one of the modern teachers in Ashtanga yoga, and I've read your book about the sutras, Ashtanga, one of the most popular. You said you have more volumes now, but this is the one I'm referring towards, the sutras and the 8 limbs of yoga. So, because it's a big topic about the sutras, and you said I want just to talk about one little piece, we decided to go for pranayama, which is the breathing techniques. And one of the questions is how can pranayama help to connect to our inner self, to our supreme, or towards the creator, if you want to say?
Yeah, let me firstly say thanks a lot for having me, Eleonora. It's a great pleasure. So to your question, so one of the main effects of pranayama is that it, you could say, synchronizes the two brain hemispheres, and it synchronizes the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and by doing so, it makes you a balanced person. And so this balance, we call that the balance between the lunar and the solar nadi, which are sometimes called Ida and Pingala. They are both attached to the left and right nostril. Sometimes they're simply also called the Chandra and the Surya, which means moon and sun. And so through that, we are balancing our various personality traits. For example, in the words of the psychologist Carl Jung, we create a balance between introversion and extroversion. Yeah, so that would be the first step, the first really important effect. Now, in another yogic text, which is called the Yoga Yajnavalkya, it's a very important text. It was actually the favorite text of Sri T. Krishnamacharya, an Indian yoga master. And so in this particular text, which is over 2,000 years old, sage Yajnavalkya says that in the normal state, it's called normal state, but what it is, it's an agitated state, because we don't know anymore what natural is. So in our normal agitated state, the pranic body is dispersed 12 finger widths over the surface of the body, so that is that far, so it's out here, yeah. And so, you know, in English there is this phrase, so and so is really out there, like it refers to a person who is too extrovert. And so there is actually like a yogic pranic equivalent of it, and it means if the prana is dispersed out of the body. And so in the Yoga Yajnavalkya, sage Yajnavalkya says that the first main effect of breath retention is to actually suck the pranic body back under the surface of your skin. And when we look into psychology, what that means is that we are withdrawing the projection. Yeah, because when the pranic body is out there in the Yoga Bhashya, Sage Vyasa, this is a different sage, he says that wherever the prana goes, there goes the mind. And in fact, this is a sentence which is also repeated in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it's a different text. Yeah. Now, of course, if the prana is out there, then the mind will also constantly reach out and look, and it will depend on external stimulus for happiness and satisfaction. Yeah. So now what is happening if a particular external stimulus is not available? Then we fall in despair. Yeah, I'll give you an example. For example, we have what we call in English a crush on somebody. That means we are sort of falling in love, but let's say this person rejects us. Yeah. And then we are in a mess, so to say. Yeah. And so this so-called falling in love, or this projecting on somebody or on something, you know, for example, we say, I've only had this $400 pair of shoes, or if only could buy this big mansion, or only if I had this big fat car, then I would be happy. That's called a projection. You will not be happy, trust me. Yeah.
So that's the cause of suffering, isn't it? When we project towards something outside.
Yes, and so the pranic cause of projection is that the pranic body is out here. If the pranic body is drawn under the surface of the skin, no projection will take place. You will walk through the world, and if some enjoyment offers it to yourself, fine, you can enjoy it. If not, you are happy by yourself. Yeah, so you are like free, internally free, and you do not require, or let's put it like this, you're independent of external stimulus. That's really important.
Yes.
Yeah?
So
because of course in our society we are being brought up to be dependent on external stimulus. The problem is sometimes the stimulus offers itself, sometimes it doesn't. So when the stimulus doesn't offer itself, then we are sort of like, almost like, let me use this term, going on cold turkey because we can't have it. Yeah. So this would be another really important effect of pranayama. And of course, another really important effect is when we eventually master breath retention. Breath retention will still the mind. It will stop the mind dead in its tracks. Yeah, so it's a very, let's say, straightforward, technical way of mastering meditation.
Here, you're talking about breath retention. I'll change a little bit the questions. Are there any contradictions for Western people to retain the breath? Because not all the pranayamas are considered to be safe. The ancient pranayamas. Now we're practicing lots of pranayamas in studios or in our yoga classes, but they're like more safe for us. But the breath retention, there was so many warnings about that. What shall we consider?
So, firstly, biomedically or genetically, there is no difference between Indians and Westerners. Yeah, and there's no difference between ancient Indians and modern Indians, and there's no difference between Indians and Westerners and Africans and Australian Aborigines. We are all Homo sapiens. Yeah. So while we may have a slightly different culture, and we may be expressing ourselves in a slightly different way, that is only a cultural difference. It's not a genetic or medical difference. So, firstly,
conditioned in a different way, as you said, to depend on external stuff, to be more like this monkey mind is more, for Westerners is more specific rather than Indians. I would say.
Yes, but you can be sure, like for example, when you read the Mahabharata, so this is an Indian epic, which is in the complete edition 4,000 pages long, 12 volumes, and it's ancient, it's very old, but you will find in the Mahabharata exactly the same conflicts which you would have in a modern, well, I don't want to call it a soap opera, but let's say, for example, the same type of conflicts that you have in Shakespeare. Yeah. So, and you have them also, let's say, when you look at movie reviews, for example, talking about wanting to get you interested in a cinema movie, a typical sentence would be that stuck to my mind. The reviewer says, this movie is a sizzling cocktail of lust, revenge, and betrayal. Yeah. So, and this was a review of a modern movie. I read this 2 or 3 years ago. Now, when you look at Shakespeare, Hamlet, for example, it's a sizzling cocktail of lust, revenge, and betrayal. Yeah.
Still
Now,
drama.
when you look at the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, it's a sizzling cocktail of lust, revenge, and betrayal. Yeah. So what I'm saying, not that much has changed. Like the basic motivation of human beings, the basic urges actually haven't changed. So it's not that the pranayama is different for Indians or for Westerners. It's more that you need to really look what is appropriate for a particular student. Yeah. So, for example, in a very important text on yoga, which is called the Vasishtha Samhita, which is again a text that is thousands of years old, the sage Vasishtha said that who practices breath retentions without having mastered alternate nostril breathing beforehand is not of sane mind. Yeah, he uses actually let's say a very unfriendly term, a very judgmental term. Yeah. So in other words,
that's kind of dangerous if you haven't mastered an alternate nostril breathing and you try to do breath retention. It's not safe because it can cause some problems.
Yes. Well, I probably should say that the term that sage Vasishtha, this is a thousands of years old text, and the sage says, who practices breath retentions without having mastered alternate nostril breathing is an idiot. That's what he says. Yeah. So of course, I don't put myself here using these terms, but I'm quoting an ancient text. Yeah. So sometimes I'm wondering, people don't study these ancient texts enough, and they don't take them serious enough. They were people. We have teachers, ancient teachers. They have practiced these techniques their entire life long. Yeah. So why don't we take the advice and study those texts? Like for example, in my Pranayama book, I have more than 500 quotations from the ancient shastras, from the ancient texts. Yeah. So my pranayama teaching is entirely based on the ancient texts. In fact, in the first draft of the pranayama book, I had 1,000 quotations.
Where
and my editor
said, order that book, as you mentioned it, that you have the book about pranayama. I haven't seen this one. I've only had the Ashtanga one with the sutras. So
this is the one.
Yeah, can we order this via Amazon?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You can go. I don't want to advertise a particular
I'm just asking
business,
because,
but is any online website, any online retailer in the whole world will have that book.
Okay, I'll look for it because your
and of course Amazon does it have
really, they're really good.
Yeah. So it's really important. Pranayama is a scientific process. Yeah, and so you need to have due diligence in place. And if you do everything properly, one after another, then it's not dangerous at all.
Yes.
Yeah. See, it's a bit similar when you do asana, when you practice postures. Yeah. You don't just jump in and do an advanced posture unprepared. Like I'm practicing yoga since almost 50 years now. And I still don't practice any advanced postures unless I have really warmed up my body and prepared myself, So in other words, what I'm saying is asana is also dangerous, like you also, driving a car is dangerous. You don't want to do any nonsense while you're on the road because you can kill yourself, So, but you have a driver's license, and then you stick to the traffic rules, and as long as all of the other people around you also stick to the traffic rules, it's not dangerous. Pranayama is exactly the same.
Okay. Thank you for this explanation. Thank you for letting me know about this pranayama book, because I really resonate with your explanations and I would like to go for it. Can new people to yoga also practice pranayama, who haven't done any breath work before. And what is safe? What's safe to start with? Let's say it that way.
Look, it really depends on what you mean when you say pranayama. Yeah. So, for example, a person who is new to yoga should not practice breath retentions. Yeah. But alternate nostril breathing without breath retentions is also pranayama. And in India is the sacred thread ceremony in which all Brahmin boys at the age 9 or 10, they get initiated into sacred thread ceremony, and as part of that, they will do pranayama, alternate nostril breathing. They do 6 rounds of nadi shodhana. Yeah, it's called nadi shodhana, without breath retentions. Yeah, so it's in India a tradition that is taught to 9, 10-year-old boys, and this is how I would start pranayama. Yeah, so in the first 3 months, you would only do this nadi shodhana or nadi shuddhi. It's often called nadi shuddhi without breath retentions. The first 3 months you would do only that. Yeah, and then what's also good is to start, for example, Kapalabhati, which is abdominal bellowing, but again it must be taught properly. Then it is a very good thing to start. Now, in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is one of the source texts of yoga, it is said that after an asana is mastered, pranayama is commenced. Yeah. Now, people often mistake that to say after all asanas are mastered. Yeah, but the yoga master Sri T. Krishnamacharya actually pointed out that in this particular stanza, asana is in the singular, not in the plural. So it means an asana is mastered. So what it means, what the text means, like the term asana actually comes from the verb root as. In Sanskrit, that means to sit. Yeah, and somehow this word actually came in the English language as being that body part on which we sit. Yeah, it means the same in Sanskrit. Yeah, so an asana is actually a seat. Yeah. So in other words, we need to be able to sit properly in a seated posture. That's all. That's the prerequisite. Yeah. Then of course we can't start with Kumbhaka. We must first learn Kapalabhati and Nadi Shuddhi, and then we. In the Yoga Vasishta, for example, Sage Vasishta was said, how long does it take to master that? Because he said, you got to master this technique before you can start breath retentions. And he gives a typical Indian answer. He says, it is mastered after 3 months, and if not, then after 3 years. Wow. So in other words, what he means is it depends on the individual student.
Okay. So mastered, I don't know, are there any, how do you see it's mastered? So you should practice 3 months.
Luckily enough, fortunately, there is exact definitions of everything, or almost everything in pranayama. Yeah. Okay. So here's the definition of mastery for Nadi Shuddhi, alternate nostril breathing. It is that during a 28-day period, you breathe approximately as much through your left nostril as through your right.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you do is you learn something which is called Svara Yoga. Yeah. So Svara is the flow. Yeah, it's the flow, and so you learn that at least 4 times a day, early in the morning, then at some point during the lunch hours, and then early evening, and then late in the night, at least 4 times you check, you close one nostril, Okay, you feel the amount of friction in the other nostril, then you close the other one. Okay, and you determine where the svara is, that means which nostril is more constricted. Yeah. So if the left nostril is open, unconstricted, then the right solar brain hemisphere, left nostril, the lunar nostril, right holistic intuitive brain hemisphere activated. Yeah, and that activates also the parasympathetic nervous system, and it also activates introversion, and etc., etc. So I don't want to go too much into that. But then when the right solar nostril is activated, that activates the left analytical, scientific, rational brain hemisphere and the sympathetic nervous system. Yeah. Now most of us are totally off kilter. That means in our modern society, almost all professions require you to activate the left analytical brain hemisphere. For example, teaching, business management, engineering, science, mathematics, any form of academia, law, medicine, you name it. All of that requires... absolutely. All business, everything that has to do with numbers, quantum physicist, to work for the police or the defense force, all of these things definitely, So, in other words, our society is completely unbalanced. Now, if you start raising Kundalini, what we call raising Kundalini, and you're completely unbalanced, then the Kundalini will go up through the solar nadi. And then you will become what's called a type A personality megalomaniac go-getter through yoga.
Hyperactivity or something?
Well, a bit more than that, a bit more malignant. Like a megalomaniac is somebody who is trying to... such a person becomes manic by pursuing their own aggrandizement. That means they probably have some form of need to manipulate other people, overpower them, and control them. Coercive control.
So that's narcissistic personality, kind of.
That they are related to. They're related, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, is there the opposite thing then?
Yes,
it's not
absolutely.
Really typical for the modern society.
No. The opposite is called. So the opposite is if you would practice, let's say, there is a pranayama technique which is called Chandra Vedana, where you only ever inhale left, exhale right, inhale left, exhale right, inhale left, exhale right. And that is a technique that you use to cure type A personality megalomania. So that means you draw the prana slowly from the solar nadi back over in the lunar nadi. And so lunar nadi means that you become very intuitive. You personally potentially become clairvoyant. You can become a shaman, a spirit healer. But you have to be careful that you don't go too far into this direction, because then it will create lunacy. Because too much lunar nadi creates lunacy. And then when you're too much on the lunar side and the Kundalini goes up through the lunar nadi, which is called the Chandra nadi, the moon, then the most obvious result would be that you become pathologically introverted, like depressive. And possibly to an extent that You don't have the get up and go and the drive anymore to go out and face the world, face our competitive society.
Yeah, there are people like this. They don't want to go at all outside, in the spiritual world. I mean, even in yoga.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a good thing that you mentioned now about this extreme ends of the modern. I don't know if that's the modern thinking or because we don't breathe properly, probably. That's what I
Yes.
guess. So
Yeah, they both cause each other. They both influence each other.
yeah, and one of my questions was about the monkey mind that I think the modern society has it, and most the Western, because the Indian people, they're more balanced. Maybe because they from young age they practice kind of meditation and breathing practices and probably at school, but our minds are completely monkey minds. Even even if we do yoga, at some point when we travel, when we start talking to other people, it's still this monkey mind sets in. So again, pranayama, what would you recommend against this? Maybe something short that
Yes.
we can go to.
Yes. So the most important thing here is, and again, one thing that is certainly apparent is that our society has accelerated. It has sped up. Yeah. And of course, a lot of this is due to this type of thing here. Yeah.
Yes.
That through handheld devices and through social media, you had doom scrolling, and now they call it brain rot. That is, how your personality breaks down under the influence of social media. And so, but I can assure you, all of this takes place in India too. Yeah. So India has absolutely taken to the IT revolution, and a lot of programs these days are being written in India. A lot of the Indians are at the forefront of all of this. Yeah. So they are suffering now from the same problems. But the most important in regards to slowing down the mind, if you think that the monkey mind is the number one problem, is that through pranayama and the use of a metronome while you practice pranayama, you slow down the breath more and more. Yeah. So you will notice, for example, that the average adult breathes 15 times per minute. Yeah. If through the practice of pranayama you reduce that more and more, like for example, I can over a really long time frame breathe once per minute, and I can slow down my breath to an extent that I breathe only once every 2 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
And so when you do that over a longer period, you notice that the mind becomes slower and slower and slower. Because in one of the yogic texts it says, similarly, like a potter's wheel is rotating, and by the motion of the potter's feet. And then if the feet have ceased the effort, the wheel still starts rotating a little bit longer until it comes to a halt. And exactly the same is with the pranayama. The mind is powered by the breath. And the more you regulate the breath down, the more the mind will regulate down. And then when the breath is almost brought to a halt, the mind will stop. Yeah. Of course, that needs to be done gradually. You don't do that all at once. This is like you need to prepare your lungs, you need to prepare your heart, yeah, over a long period. Yeah, it's similar like you don't suddenly decide to run a marathon in 2 hours or faster. This is something that you train for over 10 years and you're getting better and better and better. So it's exactly here too. Don't be ambitious.
Yes. Well, In yoga, nothing is a competition, though. So many people are just going for it. I want to do this. I want to, especially in Ashtanga, to get to second level. Come on, so many people they
Yes.
just train and have damages and
Yeah.
issues. Yeah. So
Yeah. But the thing is, we have to be compassionate with people, because you have to understand that in our society, in capitalist society, like as soon as you bring children to kindy, they're being trained to be competitive, to be ambitious. Yeah. We actually laud that. We even say, he had a really great competitive spirit. That's sort of like supposed to be something great. Yeah.
It
Now
is
you
because
suddenly
it's
come to
passion,
yoga.
isn't it? It's the agni.
Yeah. Now you suddenly come to yoga, and of course you're going to bring your competitive spirit into yoga. This is something that needs to be gradually shed through understanding.
Yeah, because the time is going ahead. Just want to ask you a last question. Hopefully, we're not gonna be cut in the middle. Essentials to well-being. What kind of pranayama again? Is it the same Nadi Shodhana, which is essential for a person average person who doesn't go too deep?
Yes, so very, very important for well-being is Kapalabhati, abdominal bellowing. But the technique is a little bit complex, because you have to make sure that the exhalation is 4 times as fast than the inhalation. Yeah, and so that is extremely important to absorb prana. Yeah. Then the alternate nostril breathing is essential, that ultimately you will get a balance between the lunar and solar nadi. Yeah. And so as you do that, as you gradually get this balance, you actually also develop sensitivity around where is your imbalance. I'll give you an example. I'm by ancestrally a very solar person. Yeah? And so I'm counteracting that by doing inhale left, exhale right, inhale left, exhale right. Yeah, so this is called Chandra Vedana. So that means you would analyze with your student, and the student can do that to a certain extent, also self-analyze after they have a certain experience. Do they need more Nadi Shuddhi, that is inhale left, exhale right, exhale left, and start again? Or is it helpful maybe to sometimes go inhale right, exhale left, inhale right, exhale left, inhale right, exhale left? Yeah? Or are they more of a solar person, in which case it's more inhale left, exhale right, inhale left, exhale right? These techniques are, the one that you inhale through the right, exhale through the left is called Surya Vedana. Yeah? You can call it, it's translated sun piercing, but what it means is that you're charging the solar nadi, because you don't have enough power in the solar nadi. Or if it's the other way around, you're charging the lunar nadi. So in my case, because I'm a very solar person, I do mainly the Chandra Vedana. So it needs to be adapted to the individual. Yeah. Then when you have come to a state of balance, then we would start to gradually introduce breath retentions. Yeah. Internal and external as well. But that again needs to be a step-by-step process. Yeah? So for example, on my website, I have 4 levels of pranayama courses. Yeah? Pranayama level 1, pranayama level 2, level 3, level 4. In total, 46 lessons. 46 lessons. Yeah? And so you just go to one lesson, and you stay there until you have integrated that lesson, then you go to the next one. Yeah, very much as if you're learning an instrument. You don't start, like playing scales at a lightning speed. Yeah, you do it step by step. And so external kumbhaka means breath retentions. They're also important. And then there are also pranayamas that we can use to reduce excess pitta, for example, if there's too much heat in the body.
Yeah, that's me.
like Shitali and seed curry. You can do some of those. And of course, diet plays a big role. Yeah? As you do pranayama, you become more and more, especially if you do it every day, you sort of realize, today my pranayama isn't as good. Especially if you practice with a metronome, yeah, or if I suggest to practice it with a metronome, then you notice every day if you're slightly out. And then you realize, what did I do? And then you realize, I ate this and this, that wasn't so good. Yeah. So through pranayama, you can also really fine-tune the body and become really sensitive to foods that are not that great for you.
Yeah. Gregor, can you mention the website with this pranayama techniques? I'll put it on the video as well.
Yeah. So my website is called 8limbs.com. So that is the numerical 8.
Yeah.
And then LIMBS as in limbs in the body, and then .com.
So
and just navigate around.
You have there a very detailed courses on pranayama, and are they online?
Yes.
Yeah, they're online accessible.
They're all online.
Okay.
On demand. Yes.
On demand.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Eleonora.
Yeah, hope everything is okay. The tornadoes are over, and you've done a great
Hopefully.
job over
Thank
there.
you.
That's why we couldn't meet few weeks in a row, but now you gave us this precious information. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thanks so much for having me. Namaste. Have a great day. Thank you.